Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here for our press conference to announce the founding or the establishing of a Civility Center, and also to talk more in general about the issue of civility here in the greater Akron area. My name is John Green. I'm really here in my capacity as director of the Bliss Institute, but as some of you may know, I have this day job that keeps me really busy as the interim president of the University of Akron. But I thought I'd just start by just talking a little bit about the background of how this day came about. A few years ago, I think it was in 2011 or 2012, a number of people came together to look at the issue of civility because we had a sense, unfortunately we were very accurate in that sense, that civility was declining very sharply, not just at the national level where we see these sorts of problems on television every night, but actually here in Akron on the ground. And so colleagues from the University of Akron, from Mount Union University, and from Cleveland State came together to establish the Ohio Civility Project. And we quickly discovered that there were a whole lot of people, not only in this region, but in the state, that were interested in this topic. And we quickly linked up with members of the faith community who were very interested in this topic, also with people in the news media, particularly the Akron Beacon Journal, which was very supportive of our efforts. We had support from a number of political people. Some of our political leaders are here today, but I want to emphasize that the quest for civility is a bipartisan activity. One of the early figures in the Ohio Civility Project was a state representative, Kirk Schuring from Stark County, and another was a state senator from this region, Frank LaRose. We're very grateful for their support. They actually were elected to new offices in this most recent election, and so they're in Columbus doing their job. So unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today. It's kind of hard to argue with that. But anyway, we did a lot of research on civility. We learned a lot of things. It was a little discouraging because despite all of our hard work, things didn't seem to get a lot better. But we stuck with it, and many of the people in the room here today were part of our ongoing discussions. Earlier this year, a number of us came to the conclusion that we needed to institutionalize these civility efforts here in the greater Akron area. And so we brought together a group of community leaders, talked about it for a while, and then decided that we needed to stop talking and start doing. And so today we're here to announce the establishment of a Civility Center within the Ray C. Bliss Institute of Applied Politics here at the University of Akron. This will provide some infrastructure for ongoing work on civility. I'll talk a little bit about its mission and its activities here in just a moment. But the key is that the Civility Center is not owned by the University of Akron, it's owned by the community. And we will already have an advisory committee from community leaders. Those members include Ms. Carla Chapman from the Akron Public Schools, Reverend Mark Ford, the director of Love Akron, Ms. Greta Johnson, who works for the county executive, Reverend Dr. Carl Wallace, Mr. Bruce Wingus, the editor and vice president of the Beacon Journal, Dr. Matt Akers from the University of Akron, and I'm going to serve in an ex officio capacity, which means that I may not be at the meetings very much. But you can all understand about how those things happen. Let me just read the mission statement of the Civility Center as it now stands. The Civility Center house within the Bliss Institute's mission is to serve as a resource for individuals, institutions, and organizations in the greater Akron area who are promoting civility and building relationships between and among diverse individuals, institutions, and organizations. We hope that the Civility Institute will do a lot of interesting things, but its primary function is to serve as an infrastructure for the ongoing activities in this area, on the subject matter in this part of the state. We see one of the primary functions of the Civility Center as being a resource center and also being a convener of many of the individuals and groups that are doing this kind of very important work in the community at large. If you want to visit our website, we have a website. We're up to date, which can be found at www.uaak.org. uakron.edu/Civility Center. It's a kind of original, thing there. So I hope that we'll make that available to everybody. But I'm really grateful today to have with us some of our community leaders. The first person I'd like to introduce to make a few remarks is the Honorable Dan Horrigan, the Mayor of the City of Akron. Mayor Horrigan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Green. I was just remarking before we started that it's that we have to, if you look at some of the words that he had said, we have to institutionalize civility. That really is a telling phrase that, the whole discourse around how we treat people has to be institutionalized, and not that it shouldn't be, as we go about our daily lives to do this anyway. And I think, I had a bedrock in education before I started into elective service, and I taught American government. And you were teaching kids, what does politics look like? How should we be acting? And, we have this entire industry across all universities that teach people, what government is about and how we should be acting. And we're all looking at the national discourse these days, and we look at maybe personal attacks. And really, throughout my 20-year career, I can tell you that, I love opposing ideas, because I think as in public office, we need to be able to learn. And I think we do that by listening to people. We have two eyes and one mouth. I think that's for a reason. It really is the bedrock. Civility is the bedrock for our discourse all the way around. And I can tell you, as we treat opponents who may have a different idea, the respect for that listening, I think, is key to any success. And the fact that we have to institutionalize it, really, if we have to go that far, it is mission critical. I mean, there is a national distrust, and I would even say a local distrust of government and what we do, because sometimes it is cloaked behind, hey, they make these decisions, and hey, what are they going to do with this, or what are they going to do with that? We need to be more transparent, and I've made those pledges, throughout my 3 years as mayor, and even through the clerks and on the council's office. We need to be able to tell people what we're doing. They may not agree, but I think they get a better understanding. And I think they are a little bit more civil when they're able to say, listen, I have the information, and maybe I disagree, and maybe that spurs them into public action. And we really need to be a model for how that works. I can tell you, in working across literally party lines, or if different institution and legislative bodies, whether it's county council or somebody else, or our county executive, we disagree all the time, maybe 10 times before sunrise on Monday, but we're still able to come to this middle ground. It is because I think of that healthy respect for each other, and that we earned this position at some particular point. And if somebody else wants to be able to do this, that's fine. There's a process to be able to do it. How we go about all this, and I think to be able to model all of that, I think it's a basic level of where we start in respecting that opinion. So I'm proud and honored to be part of this, and I wish you continued success, and how we can continue to do that, with our elective leaders, not only in the city but across the region. I pledge my full support, for as long as we need to be able to do this. We would love to be able to say one day, hey, listen, everybody is civil. I think that's a goal that we're trying to get to, is that we're all treating each other with a level of respect that everybody has earned. Really, as human beings, and how we treat each other, I think that's the minimum level to go from there. So it's really an honor to be part of this, and I look forward to your ongoing success. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Horrigan. Now I'd like to introduce the Honorable Eileen Shapiro, who is the executive of Summit County.
Well, thank you, Dr. Green and the entire team, for your commitment to this. As I'm looking around the room, I see a body of people that are already committed to this, and looking forward to how we can take that to the next step. I believe that it's incumbent on each and every one of us in this community to share this commitment, to further the work that unites us, to build relationships with those that hold differing opinions of ours, and to collectively forge a future that holds promise, mutual respect, and a focus on the common good. I just heard somebody say, so I'm plagiarizing, every face has a story, and it stuck with me. And so as you talk to people, what they bring to the table may be very different than what we are, or what we think as individuals, because we each have stories. Each of our faces have a story, and we have to respect that difference that those faces bring to the table. Civility is not just a word, it's a powerful action that leads to dialogue, it leads to solutions, and it leads to a common understanding. from the bedrooms to the boardrooms of Summit County, to the halls of state government and the halls of the United States Congress. Civility at every level is how we will be defined as individuals, as a community, and as a country. I believe commitment to civility is how Summit County has and will continue to lead into a new era of not only economic development, but social equality. You know, I have tell a personal story. A colleague at one point, wanted me to support something, okay? And I'm up on the council dais, and we're waiting for council to start, and this individual he's a colleague, standing on the floor, and he is yelling at me because I won't support what he wanted to support, which made absolutely no sense. But that's beside the point. And the more he yelled, the more I kept trying to talk to him, the louder his voice got. And I finally looked at him and said, you know, the louder you yell, the less I can hear you. Because it is starting with listening. It's starting for us to try and empathize and understand, not necessarily agree, but understand where somebody else is coming from. So I went out to the restroom, and he followed me, and he was still trying to pound on me to get me to do this. And I just looked at him and I said, tell me something. Have you read the legislation? And he stopped. He wanted so much to be able to do something that he thought was good, he didn't care about whether we went about it the right way or not, okay? So we were able to bridge the difference, but it was because I had to understand where he was coming from and who he was as an individual. Sometime back, maybe a year or two ago, the city of Akron and Summit County became welcoming communities, and we made a commitment to what that meant. How we opened our doors and how we treated people. And we want to live up to that commitment. We are strong partners in this initiative. We support the work that the university is doing, but more importantly, we support the work that everybody does in this community every single day. We want to agree, we want to work to common solutions, but we want to do it in a way. I talk about taking a Rubik's Cube. You've got an idea, you've got an idea, I've got an idea, and we all twist that Rubik's Cube. But if we're talking to each other and we're listening to each other, we can hear and we can develop outcomes. So I want to tell you how proud the county is to be a partner of this with the city, with the university, and with all of you that are out there. And as with the mayor, you have our full support, and we look forward to working together as a community and creating the future for our community and our country. Thank you all.
Thank you, Executive Shapiro. And now I'd like to introduce Reverend Dr. Carl Wallace from the United Church of Christ.
Please look around. Look around our world. Something is missing. Civility is missing, I contend. For this day in Greater Akron, we will lay the foundation for what is missing, being civil with one another. Turn to your neighbor and say, I'm going to be civil with you. Now, how many of you just lied? I know right now. Let's just make sure we take care of that right now. We know that each day we are blessed with choices. When we open our mouths, we can choose civility, dignity, kindness, or not. It's our choice. This day, we intentionally choose civility over incivility, love over hate, and in Aretha's legacy, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. This is the right time. For on this day after Martin Luther King's birthday, we embrace his words, time is always right to do the right thing. The right thing this day is that in our community, as we come together to sign a civility compact and give birth to the Civility Center at the University of Akron, this will no doubt leave a great legacy in our community, but especially for Dr. John Green, who without his resolve and leadership, this would not happen. Let's please give him a hand. As he mentioned to you, the Civility Center will provide resources to promote civility and prevent incivility, But more importantly, we will strive to create a culture of civility in our community. This is not a mandate without resource, but it is resources that creates the mandate to have dignity, grace, and respect. Civility for our community. And you watch and see other cities will try to emulate what we're going to do and have laid the foundation this day. Now, regrettably, no one has the power that my grandmother had, because she had the power to wash our mouths out with soap when we spoke ill of someone. Now, we cannot completely stop stupidity and hate, but we can come together as one community to speak truth to power and bring about change. As the Holy Quran says, speak good to people. The Torah says, neither good nor peace comes of quarreling. In my faith, the Christian Bible says, encourage one another and lift one another up. And as Dr. King said so eloquently, to live together as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools. Turn to your neighbor and say, you don't look like a fool. This is, shame on you over there. This is the right time. We can choose this day to live in peace and not let any wall divide us, for it is our choice. In my faith tradition, the Christ said and greeted all with these words of civility, peace be unto you. This day in our world where religions can come to divide us, this day the faith community of Akron has come together united. This day, great faith leaders in our community, Pastor Ford, Carrie Lewis, Dr. Hawk, Rabbi Brown, Pastor Brake, Father Norm, we have all come together this day to pledge that we will strive to let there be civility on earth, and it will begin with us because it's the right time.
Thank you, Reverend Wallace. I want to take a moment to recognize some of the leaders of the community who've been with us. You know, we often talk about how we're becoming a more and more diverse world, and that's a good thing. But civility becomes even more important the more diverse we become, because we have more reasons to disagree and therefore more reasons to learn how to be civil to each other. And so I'd like to thank Dr. Huck for being with us, Rabbi Brown, Representative Chrisman, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Mark Ford and Judy Hill, Josh Thomas, Senator Sykes, and Jolene Lang from the University of Akron, David James from the Akron Public School System. Sorry about that, David. It's been a long day. Bruce Wingus from the Beacon Journal, and Carla Chapman from the public schools. Could we give them all a hand? Reverend Wallace mentioned the Civility Compact. A number of people who've been involved in this for a long time have signed this compact. I'm going to read it in just a moment. But if anyone else would like to affix their signature to the document, please see me after we're concluded, and we'd be more than happy to have your support. And the compact reads this: we, the undersigned members of the greater Akron community, pledge to practice and encourage civility in our community. Our goals are to set standards for civility, provide resources to promote civility and prevent incivility, coordinate an annual summit celebrating civility, and most importantly, create a culture of civility in the greater Akron community. To aid in this endeavor, we are supporting the creation of the Civility Center, which will be housed and maintained by the Bliss Institute at the University of Akron, with the advice from a representative committee of community leaders. Let there be civility on earth, and let it begin with us. Thank you all for joining us here today. I'd be happy to take questions from representatives of the news media or other people in the audience. Yes, ma'am. Well, we've actually talked about doing a number of things. There's a lot of resources about how to deal within civility and how to promote civility. And of course, these resources are available for many different areas. One of the things that we talked about was incivility has to be learned from a very young age. And Superintendent James remarked at one of our meetings that one of the places this can happen is in the public schools, where we can train people and how to be civil, because for a lot of people this is a new kind of behavior. When we started the Civility Project, we got an amazing number of calls from people who worked on city councils and school boards and other deliberative bodies where incivility had broken out and they needed some help to try to get everybody back on the same page and working together. So there's a whole host of those kinds of resources, which we will either post on our website or we'll post where they can be found. The compact mentions an annual summit celebrating civility. We're going to organize that. We hope we'll be able to do that this year. Another idea that came up was, we need to model civility. And one way to do that is to lift up people in our community who are models of civility. So we have talked very seriously about having an annual civility award where people in the community would nominate leaders who are good examples of civil behavior, particularly in those really tough decisions where we need civility to a very high degree. So those are the kinds of things that we want to do. Unfortunately, we don't have Reverend Wallace's mother to discipline people. I actually identify with Reverend Wallace. With me, it wasn't my mother; it was my grandmother. But so we have to do this by persuasion, by example, by setting some standards, so that when people violate the standards of the community, we can let them know and encourage them to operate according to the standards of the community. So those are the kinds of things we want to do. But I think the most important thing the civility community will do through its advisory council is to convene all the different organizations in this area that in one way or another address the topic of civility. So we have a place to talk to one another about the different things that we're doing. You're welcome. Well, this is all going to be on the test, which will be essay, not multiple choice. Yes, Father Room.
I know it's always difficult in political years, which are every year in one way or the other. I know in the past, sometimes there were, if somebody in a political position, but it could be people in other positions too, said something uncivil, it was pointed out, whether somewhere maybe in the media or some other way to say if you reach obviously true, no, you're going to be called out. I don't know if there's anything like that or a way that's fair about doing that.
Well, we have talked about that, and the first step would be to develop a set of standards that are widely accepted in the community. So it's not just my opinion or your opinion or the next person's opinion. And one of the important things here is we don't, as the mayor was pointing out, we don't want to stop discussion. We really need to talk to each other. And every once in a while, we all get a little bit excited and maybe say some things that are not helpful. But if we have a set of standards that we can be held to, I think that's quite important. But this, of course, has to be done in a civil fashion, right? And that's one of the things that I find most depressing about the problem of civility today throughout the United States is that once upon a time, there were some agreed upon standards. I'm not saying they were perfect, but there were standards that people agreed to. And so when someone violated those standards, they immediately got called out, oftentimes by their own supporters first, because this was seen as unpersuasive. Maybe because incivilities become so common in some circles, people don't notice it anymore, right? And particularly young people seem to assume that that's the way the world is. Maybe that's the way it is right now, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so that's a really good point, Father Norm, that if we have standards, then we need to hold people accountable to those standards. Any other questions? Well, if not, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your support.
Amen.